Am I live? Looks like I'm live. Let me just double check. Fellas, how are we doing? Welcome to week 6. I'm Chuck Silver. I'm here with Occupy Fantasy. We're going to break down this beautiful, absolutely beautiful showdown slate between the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. We have a pretty high total. I thought it was weird too that Kansas City was 2.5 point favorites, even with their struggles. But once we get into the injury report, I think that'll make a little bit more sense. I'll let you know right now that the model is leaning heavily towards Detroit. I expect the field to lean towards Kansas City, so we're going to get some advantages there. We're going to figure out how to balance it, with all the injury news that we're going to go over. So, as always, fellas, throw your questions in the chat. I'll be here for 30 to 40 minutes. We still have NBA preseason going on. If you guys are not aware, I think that we have the best NBA preseason content in the whole industry. Smitty and I write the plug every single day, and I don't know, we're a week in and we've combined for like probably 100 top 5 finishes, not even exaggerating. So we're doing pretty well. And if you guys just follow what we talk about in the plug and in the Discord, you'll do well in NBA preseason too. We even had a staple in our Discord take down the flagship on DraftKings yesterday for preseason, so that was pretty cool. But we're talking about NFL Showdown tonight. Hopefully your main slate's going well. This was a kind of a fun one. Lots of chalk went off, but there are some pieces that you could have swapped off on, just like tonight. We're going to have some chalk we're expecting to go off. We're going to find the pieces to swap off. So let's get into it. As far as injuries go, Kansas City has no injury designation. So they're, as far as we know, fully healthy. They're still going to be without Rashee Rice tonight, so we have the trends that we can look at. We're very interested in Xavier Worthy. I'll mention that right now. For Detroit, though, as far as like fantasy relevant players, Khalif Raymond is questionable. If he's out, pretty sure Isaac Tesla just slides into that wide receiver 3 role. That's what happened when Khalif Raymond got hurt last week. Isaac Tesla saw a season high, I think it was 34% of snaps, which is pretty good for him. We kind of know that he's a player who maybe only has to catch one touchdown to get there. And seems like he has like a pretty high spectacular catch rating. So even though the targets haven't really been there, should Raymond miss the game, Tesla is pretty cheap. He's pulling some ownership right now. We have him projected already for over 20% on DraftKings. So just keep that in mind. But, if he's going to be on the field, then we're interested, especially with how high this total is. Sion Vaki's out, one of the running backs on Detroit. Now, here's where it gets kind of weird. So Detroit's starting left tackle, Taylor Decker, is out. He missed last week too. And Giovanni Manu started for him. He's also out tonight. And so Detroit is likely going to start Dan Skipper at left tackle. He was just signed to the active roster last week. He's their third string left tackle. We've seen it a few times this season. We already know how important left tackles are. So that's a pretty decent hit to Detroit's offense overall. It's going to affect everyone, and it's a slight bump to Kansas City's defense. And then on the Detroit defensive side, they're missing Avonte Maddox. He was expected to start with another guy who's out, Terrion Arnold. He is the starting cornerback. They were going to start Avonte Maddox and then slide one of the other players over to fill in for Arnold, but Maddox is out, so they're going to have to call someone up. So just look out for that. It doesn't really matter who it is. The point is that they're going to have multiple practice squad players out running their defense tonight. And then Brian Branch is also questionable. He's a defensive back, and one of their safeties, Kirby Joseph, is questionable. So all that, Detroit's banged up. It's a downgrade to Detroit on both sides of the ball, so it's easier to understand why Kansas City is favored when we consider those things. I'll let you know also that the model is very, very high on Detroit players. Four of the top 5 plays in the model, are on Detroit, along with Patrick Mahomes. So we're going to be pretty interested in loading up on Detroit players in high risk. And for the reasons that I just said, if you want to go with the field and load up on Kansas City, that's obviously fine too. I just tend to look for the guys that are a little bit underowned, and I know that the Detroit offensive line is going to be not as good as they have been, just due to the players that they're going to have in tonight. But I still kind of just like going a little bit more Detroit heavy. And it looks like the model actually did update. We have Amon-Ra clearly in a tier of his own on both sites. Jahmyr Gibbs is second, also on both sites. There's a larger gap on DraftKings. I think Amon-Ra is one of the absolute top captain MVP options on both sites. We have Kareem Hunt actually as the top play on Kansas City, and he's playing less snaps than Isaiah Pacheco, but he's getting pretty much all of the goal line work. As far as red zone opportunities go, I believe it's 10 red zone opportunities for Kareem Hunt to 6 for Pacheco this season, but Kareem Hunt has, let me just double check I get this exactly right. Kareem Hunt has 3 goal line carries, and Pacheco has not had a carry on the goal line. So all of their touches are just within the 20-yard line, but Kareem Hunt is the guy if they're on the 1-yard line that we're expecting to go to. So I think that's why he's ranked so highly in the model. He's also cheaper than Isaiah Pacheco and expected for lower ownership, at least over on DraftKings. So I think that's going to be our lean as far as Kansas City running backs go, but don't just ignore Isaiah Pacheco. We have Xavier Worthy very high on the model as well. He is a underperforming wide receiver. That just means that he scored much less fantasy points than he's expected to based on things like air yards, targets, just his overall opportunity. So we're really going to lean into Xavier Worthy in any roster position tonight. He is projected for double-digit captain ownership over on DraftKings at 13%, 37% in the flex, which isn't too bad. And, he came back last week. He assumed his alpha role right away. He's seen 9 and 8 targets in the last 2 games since he's been back. So I see no reason for that to be any different tonight, especially with how high this total is. We also have Sam Laporta, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, and Kelsey with Marquise Brown near the top of the model. And I made a mistake when I said Patrick Mahomes was the top Kansas City play. He's a little bit lower tonight, but he's Patrick Mahomes, so we're not really too worried about that. Let's get into the chat here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Yeah, let's talk about Noah Gray a little bit. I feel like this is the game he'll be more involved, and the Chiefs are going to need some different looks for tonight if they want to pull off a win. Yeah, so they are the favorite, and with Noah Gray, he's not projected for too much ownership. I'll mention that he's quite a bit lower on the model, even at that value price on DraftKings, and he's basically at the bottom of the model on FanDuel. Projected for 2% ownership on FanDuel, that's whatever. The 13% on DraftKings, that probably sounds just about right for Noah Gray. He has 2 red zone targets on the season. He's on the field a fair amount. He's not really getting targeted that often, but he does offer salary relief. And this is something I've been talking about on the show where, we play this guy, we want him to catch a touchdown, right? But if this probably won't do it, but if he puts up a few fantasy points and his salary allows us to fit in Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Xavier Worthy, and one of the quarterbacks, then that could be pretty good. And we're hoping he catches that touchdown. We've seen that he has the potential to pull 5 and 6 targets. Remember, this was, excuse me. Remember these games that he had 5 and 6 targets, Xavier Worthy wasn't there. And with Xavier Worthy back, he saw 0 and 1 in the last 2 weeks. So I'm not too high on Noah Gray. The model's not too high on Noah Gray, but I'm sure he's going to end up in a lineup or two that I make tonight. Along those lines, I do want to mention Brock Wright, the backup on the Lions. Very similar situation. He's on the field a pretty fair amount. He doesn't run that many routes and he doesn't draw that many targets, but both of these touchdowns were red zone targets and he caught both of them. So that's pretty significant. And if we're playing large field, he's projected for like 3% ownership on DraftKings. We'd be pretty psyched to get these fantasy scores at this 2,400 price, especially with what I just said, with how he would allow us to fit in another stud in our lineup. Now, he's super high risk and he is more expensive than Noah Gray. So just keep that in mind if you want to take that punt option with Brock Wright. It would be helpful to use Noah Gray. Yeah, they've got a bunch of wide receivers that we're going to talk about, and I don't know that that's what's affecting Noah Gray, but like I mentioned, Xavier Worthy is very underperforming. He's our top upwar of the night. Hollywood Brown is also underperforming. He's looking pretty good in the model at that 5,400 value price. And Tyquan Thornton is actually the third underperforming wide receiver at 4,400. even with Xavier returning last week, he still played a pretty decent amount of snaps. And like what I'm pretty sure I've talked about Tyquan Thornton on the show before. This is the type of player who can catch one long pass, score a touchdown, and get there on one play. That's not to say that the other guys on Kansas City don't have that opportunity, but like Patrick Mahomes is looking for Tyquan down the field, especially if they're down late. Tyquan's going to be running straight that way, and Patrick Mahomes is going to chuck up the ball and hope that he catches it. So I really like Tyquan Thornton at that lower ownership tonight as a pivot to the other guys. I think he's a little bit too low owned. What's up, Eli? Your Colts are 5-1. Yeah, they are. They didn't cover today though. Hollywood captain thoughts? Yeah, Chris was talking to me about this in our work chat earlier. So let's take a look at what a lineup like that would look like. We'll start with our first lineup build with Marquise Brown at captain. And I like this because it allows us, he's a value captain. It lets us possibly fit in another stud. So let's go with Amon-Ra and Worthy in the flex since I've been talking them up. Hollywood captain will go with Mahomes here. Leaves us 6,050. We could go with Jared Goff if we wanted to, 2,500. Gets us to Isaac Tesla. Make sure that Khalif Raymond's out if you're playing Tesla. I guess he would still be in play if Raymond is available, but he's probably going to be a little bit overowned in that case. So if Raymond's out, Tesla's fine. He's going to be on the field. Detroit, I mean, we know their two main receivers are Jameson and Amon-Ra, but there's a little bit to go around for the third wide receiver there too. Could fit in Noah Gray as well. Maybe we'll skip Goff in this one. Let's just go all the way up to Gibbs. That leaves us 1,100. There's not really much that we can do at $1,000 or less, so maybe we'll try Montgomery. 5,100. Yeah, that's great. We can play Harrison Butker, Kareem Hunt, Tyquan Thornton. That gives us a lot of options. So that's the power of playing someone like Marquise Brown at captain, and it's fine. He's coming in for sub 5% ownership. Fade Gibbs is crazy. I don't think it's crazy. I'd probably want to play David Montgomery. The thing is, Gibbs is just he has so much opportunity. Let me pull this up. Jahmyr Gibbs is currently first in the NFL in red zone opportunities with 29. Like, that's insane. I will mention only one of those came at the goal line. David Montgomery has 5 goal line carries to go with. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. So Jahmyr Gibbs has 29 red zone opportunities total, but only one of them is at the goal line. David Montgomery has 18 red zone opportunities, but 5 of them are at the goal line. Now, that could just be variance with who's in on that drive, but that just gives us another reason to be interested in David Montgomery tonight. And so if you do want to fade Jahmyr Gibbs, just count on him not scoring that touchdown. It's probably not. It's not a bad thing, especially if you're playing Amon-Ra instead, maybe, or David Montgomery instead. Like, we're going to have to fade a stud tonight. We're probably going to have to fade a stud and one of the quarterbacks, actually. So, you have to make some decisions there. Gibbs is second on the model on both sites. He's projected for 17% captain ownership on DraftKings. That's second to only Patrick Mahomes. And over on FanDuel, Gibbs is projected for 19% FanDuel MVP. Also second to only Patrick Mahomes. So I could see fading him. I'm going to have lineups without him, but I'm pretty interested in getting him in there as well. You think that Hollywood Thornton is the better leverage duo than Kelsey and Worthy, especially with the amount of studs tonight? I think it's great. It's very obvious how that lineup works, right? Hollywood just gets a couple more targets. Maybe he catches the touchdown, and Tyquan Thornton, has one of those long receiving plays that he's already had this season. So I think it's fine, especially if that's how you get up to players like Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs also in your lineup. I mean, that's part of what I was talking about with how much freedom we have with our lineups tonight. Like, let's build one without Worthy. Let's try Amon-Ra, one of our top captain options. No, we'll put him at captain. Amon-Ra, Jared Goff. We'll skip Worthy, but we'll play Mahomes here. And let's even go Hollywood and Tyquan Thornton. And I don't think I've mentioned Juju much yet, but Juju's definitely in play also at that 2,800 price. He has 5 red zone targets this season, which ties for the lead on the team. And he actually plays, I think he's going to play the second most snaps after Xavier Worthy tonight, if the past trends are anything to go off of. So leaves us 4,400. We can get to one of the defenses, Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, we could play Juju and just leave a little bit of salary. Maybe we want to swap this around and get Mahomes at captain instead, though, and then maybe we can upgrade one of these other guys. But yeah, it's just a lot of lineup combinations that we can get tonight. I talked about it a little bit on last week's stream about the touchdown variance, and that exists here today. Like we have a better idea of who's going to score touchdowns for Detroit, and then Kansas City. I mean, we're expecting Worthy like to be the main touchdown guy, but he hasn't been that yet. So uh, the touchdowns are a little bit more random with the Chiefs. Eli, you predict the more the Chiefs use Worthy in motion and use him for jet sweeps, that leaves Detroit vulnerable to giving up deep throws to Thornton. Do you agree? I mean, in theory, yeah, that doesn't sound incorrect. But how many jet sweeps are they going to give to Worthy to where it really opens up things for Thornton? It's asking for a couple of different things to happen, and so while I don't think that's a bad idea, I'm interested in playing Thornton regardless of that deep throw vulnerability. Not to mention Detroit's missing guys on their defense, so I think that the deep throws should be there tonight anyway. Can I see Tesla getting more targets than Jamison Williams? Let's take a look at what the targets look like the last few games for these guys. So, yeah, Tesla played his, I guess, career high snaps last week, and he still only saw one target. He has 5 targets total on the season. Jamison Williams has 21. And so it's possible. I don't think it's a likely outcome, though. And remember, Jamison Williams was underperforming. He was an underperforming wide receiver last week. He was top of the model on the main slate, and he drew one target for 7 air yards. The week before, I think he had like 150 or something ridiculous like that. And so we're still interested in Jamison Williams, especially if the rest of the field is less likely to click on him tonight because he did so poorly last week. But I mean, you can't tell me the potential for him to have 150 air yards tonight isn't there. So yeah, we're still interested in Jamison Williams. And as far as Tesla and Khalif Raymond go, again, I'm just looking at them more as salary relief plays, and whatever fantasy points they end up giving me, I would look at as a bonus. But if one of those targets is, in the red zone and Isaac Tesla manages to catch another cool touchdown, then yeah, he's probably going to be in the winning lineup. Better punt, Brock Ryder, Tesla. I'm just going to look at what the model says about him. So they're actually basically the same on the model. Tesla has a slight edge over on FanDuel. They're both projected for very low ownership on FanDuel. Brock Ryder's projected for 0% ownership on DraftKings. He's going to come in a couple percent owned at least. Tesla, though, right now, we have Khalif Raymond still projected in, and Tesla is projected for 15% in the flex, 1% at captain. It sounds incorrect to me, but like 15% isn't that much, and so like it's not something that we're looking to fade intentionally. If he ends up in a couple of my lineups, I'm okay with it. But the model doesn't really love either of them as a punt. Not that we have that many punt options to begin with, but I mean, Khalif Raymond is ranked slightly higher, assuming he's in. Noah Gray is slightly higher. Maybe if Raymond is ruled out, I'm sure Tesla might bump up a little bit in the model, but I wouldn't think that it's a big enough jump for it to change how we look at him completely. But he definitely would be the better punt, I think. If Khalif Raymond misses, Tesla is probably the better punt than Brock Wright, but we're really just counting on one of them to catch a touchdown anyway. At least with Tesla, he has the opportunity to catch a long pass that's not a touchdown, where Brock Wright probably doesn't. So Tesla can be useful without a touchdown, whereas Brock Wright probably can't. Back to Brashard Smith. So Brashard Smith, let's pull this guy up. It's 3,000. It's a weird price. He's only 1,000 less than Pacheco. He's only 1,600. Excuse me. Yeah, it's 1,000 less than Pacheco. He's only 1,600 less than Hunt. So it's kind of a weird price range, especially with those value punts that I just talked about a second ago. But if he's going to get targeted in the passing game, 4 targets, 3 targets, that's pretty valuable. We're not going to expect him to get much of the rushing work, and I can't imagine a scenario that he gets the goal line work over Kareem Hunt. But this value in the passing game gives us something. The model doesn't hate him. He is ranked higher than those other guys we just talked about on both sites. projected for 8% ownership on DraftKings, 13% on FanDuel. I think he's fine as a punt. I'll mention he only played 6 snaps last week. I guess he got a target on all of them. Yeah, so he's not playing many snaps. The week before he played 19, and it looks like he had 8 opportunities. So I guess if he is getting on the field, they're looking to get him involved. I think I talked about this on the last Chiefs Showdown. The running back room is wide open. If anyone can step up and show that they're worthy of being a starting running back, then I don't see how Andy Reid just doesn't give him more playing time. So we might see that ramp up. I know I mentioned he only played 6 snaps last week. It's the second lowest he's played this season, but it's a weird situation. It's not fluid, so don't allow that to dictate you being afraid to play him tonight. I think he's fine to get in there as a punt. You think Pacheco gets more dump offs? Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're counting on for Pacheco to reach value, is to catch passes. I mean, he's been targeted a decent amount in every game. We'll take this for sure with the rushing attempts. And this is actually pretty good for Pacheco. 5 yards carry, 5 yards carry, 5 yards carry, 4.5. I know it's a smallish sample size, but that's pretty strong considering how poor we're viewing Pacheco as. He actually hasn't been that bad. And so it's I don't know. I think I mentioned we could maybe ignore this running back room a few weeks ago, but I don't think we want to ignore it tonight, especially with this high total game. We probably want to mix in all of them, but we are more interested in Hunt. Pacheco's role is diminishing by the week. Pacheco played a season-high 63% of snaps last week versus Kareem Hunt's 33%. And Pacheco has played more snaps in 4 out of 5 games this season over Kareem Hunt. That doesn't necessarily mean he's getting more opportunities than Kareem Hunt, but he is on the field more. And so, I can't imagine, again, that Andy Reid doesn't want Pacheco to be the running back one here. They're playing Hunt out of necessity, but if Pacheco looked like Pacheco did at the beginning of last season before the injury, then I can't imagine he wouldn't be dominating snaps here a little bit more. Brock for last spot. It's fine. It's just, it works. It can work even if he doesn't put up a good score. If, the lineup that you need is something like, let's fit in Brock right and see what we can fit here. Leaves us at 12,600. Let's put Worthy, 3,600. We can still get Chiefs defense, Brashard Smith or Juju. And so the value in Brock Wright here is not necessarily in hoping that he gives us that 8+ fantasy points or whatever he needs. It's that everyone else puts up close to 30 or something like that, and no one else really scores fantasy points, so that you just need the raw points from the guys who actually put up points tonight. But you got to remember, Tyquan Thornton can score a decent fantasy score without scoring a touchdown. Kareem Hunt probably needs a touchdown, but he is going to get the goal line work tonight, we're expecting, so I think that's fine. The kickers are both there. Marquise Brown can easily catch a touchdown. Jameson Williams can easily break the slate. And so there's just a lot of things that can happen where one of these value guys outscores one of these studs. And so I don't love forcing it tonight, but it's an idea. St. Brown is the fade tonight. It's unfortunate because he's my favorite play. The model has him standing out as very, very clearly the top play on DraftKings. And while his ownership, we're not getting a great leverage on his captain and MVP ownership. He's projected for 16% on DraftKings and 10% on FanDuel. That's still low enough for me because I'm pretty much fading Mahomes at quarterback again. Surprise. And so I'm getting to a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown and a lot of Xavier Worthy at my captain and MVP spot. And especially given the high total, the model is recognizing Amon-Ra's ceiling. That's why he's ranked so high. And kind of the same with Xavier Worthy being an underperforming wide receiver. It's just the potential for them to put up a massive score is there. And I really want to take advantage of that. But if you want to fade and you're going more Chiefs heavy, that's fine too. Remember, Detroit is pretty banged up on both sides. Builder keeps giving you Juju in the flex, just play it. That's the thing about Juju. I think the price is probably incorrect. 2,800 is a little bit too cheap. I mentioned he's playing. Xavier Worthy's been out, but Juju leads this receiving room in snaps played total this season. About 10% more than Marquise Brown? So it's not that much more, but Juju was still on the field for 66% of snaps last week, and at 2,800, how many targets did he draw? He's drawing 3+ targets in every game. I don't see any reason why that would, we shouldn't expect it to go away. It's obviously possible he doesn't draw those targets tonight, but that, along with the 5 red zone targets, I think it's enough to play Juju at 2,800. Let's take a look at what this looks like. So we'll do Hollywood Captain. Hollywood Captain, Mahomes, Thornton, Butker, St. Brown, and Gibbs. Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing. You can play one of these value guys at captain, and you don't even have to punt off on a guy like Brock Wright or Isaac Tesla. Like, you can just play real football players. Yeah, Thornton or Kareem Hunt. You even have the option here if you go with this one. You can play the other kicker, Kareem Hunt, Tyquan Thornton, Isaiah Pacheco. There are a lot of options here. So, yeah, Hollywood Brown, excuse me, might be a pretty solid captain option at that ownership. Critique this lineup. All right, so apparently the chat really likes Hollywood Brown captain, and you guys are talking me into it a little bit more. I'm very heavy on just Amon-Ra and Xavier Worthy, but I think I am going to mix in some Hollywood Brown now. Both QBs, both running backs. So we're not playing Amon-Ra on this one, which is fine. We'll put Goff, Pacheco. Leaves us 7,300 to get to David Montgomery. Oh yeah, both Detroit running backs. I mean, just looking at it, it seems fine. Yeah, Kansas City captain with a 3-3 build. Maybe we're hoping, obviously, that Brown catches a touchdown, Mahomes rushes in another touchdown, and the running backs for Detroit score all the points, fading Amon-Ra. Yeah, this is a decent lineup. Try Thornton and captain. Okay. Let's do Tyquan Thornton. It's a little bit of salary relief from Marquise Brown, so let's just jam in the top plays and see if that works. Like, you can play the 4 most expensive guys. Fade Worthy. You still have to punt off on one of these guys, but let's say we're going to keep Mahomes because of the Tyquan captain. Let's say we fade Gibbs at that price and we play Worthy instead. Leaves us 4,000 to get to Pacheco or one of the defenses. Maybe. Yeah, again, it's another build that gives us a lot of options with how we want to fill out the lineup. People still don't realize how Smith's role is growing week to week. I mean, I hear you, but it's like they're talking about it growing, but it's not. He played 9% of snaps last week. That's not, he did play 26 the week before. And like I mentioned, when he's on the field, it looks like they're trying to get him the football. They want to make him a thing. And so it's definitely possible he gets that opportunity to try to become a thing again tonight. But it's just, they're talking about it more than it's actually happening on the field. Chiefs have held their own versus wide receiver ones. Chiefs secondary severely underrated. Hey, I don't necessarily disagree, but the model is aware of how strong the Chiefs defense is, and it still has Amon-Ra as like far and away the top play. So, but if you want to fade Amon-Ra, that's definitely a fine fade. Will the kickers be under-owned tonight? The kickers will be very under-owned tonight, yeah. I don't know that I'm too interested in going with any 2 kicker lineups tonight, not in large field anyway. But over on DraftKings, Butker is only projected for 17% ownership, and Jake Bates is only projected for 13% ownership in the flex. I mean, it's just a little bit too low. You don't have to play that much more of the kickers to get over the field. If you have, 20% of both of them, you're over the field. Maybe a little bit more Butker, get closer to 25, but that's plenty of leverage right there. All right, let's see what else of the players I haven't touched on yet. So I'm just going to reiterate that we have 3 underperforming wide receivers in this game. They are all on Kansas City: Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Tyquan Thornton, in that order. Xavier Worthy is underperforming by much more than Hollywood and Tyquan are underperforming, if that makes sense. So that's to say Xavier is the one leaving the most meat on the bone here. They're all great options, though. Like, we just showed how easy it is to build lineups when we put one of these cheaper guys at captain. So I like that too. And Worthy, if he's not in your captain spot, then I think he's great in the flex. Or if you just want to fade him and play more of the guys like Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Travis Kelce, Juju, it's obviously fine too. Haven't talked about Travis Kelce too much, but I mean, he's 8K. He's on the field like 80+% of snaps every week. He's still seeing the targets. I know he doesn't look like Travis Kelce, like the Travis Kelce we're expecting anyway when you watch the games, but he's, like, for what it's worth, still an elite tight end. The model still thinks very highly of him. He's what, the 8th ranked play overall on DraftKings, and all right, he's a little bit lower on FanDuel, but we can still consider him there. On FanDuel, it's just, let me make sure this is set up correctly. Nice. On FanDuel, it's just a little bit more awkward because, like, Travis Kelce's 8,600, but then we scroll down, Hollywood Brown's 58, Kareem Hunt 54, Taekwon 5, Juju 46, and so it's a little bit tougher. It's kind of like you're paying up to be contrarian. He's projected for under 30% ownership in the flex over here. Travis Kelce is, but he's still fine. You just have to find another punt over on FanDuel. Let's try and build out a FanDuel lineup real quick. I've only been on DraftKings today. Apologize for that. Let's try Worthy at MVP. Amon-Ra. We'll play Goff. We'll do Montgomery to save a little salary. What's that leave us? 5,300 per player. Yeah, like, this is a pretty simple lineup, and it's pretty tough to fit Travis Kelce in here because then we're left with 2,000 total. I mean, yeah, just punt off on Brock Wright again, but it doesn't feel great if that's what everyone's default is going to be. Jam in studs and punt off on Brock Wright and Noah Gray. Like, if we try it with Hollywood Brown, who's like still a really good price over on FanDuel, this 5,800, yeah, we can fit in Juju or Isaac Tesla, which, is it's a little bit better. Captain Kelce. This guy needs some cough drops. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I need to take more sips of water. Thank you. Not water, my juice, but Captain Kelce is an option too. Again, it's a little bit more awkward over on FanDuel just due to the price, and we're going to have to find one cheaper guy to play in there, but let's try it. Let's skip Amon-Ra on this one. We'll do Gibbs, Goff, leaves 5,050. So you can still do it, but we are fading Amon-Ra and Xavier Worthy here. We're not going to be able to fit in David Montgomery with Gibbs, but even Jamison Williams, Isaiah Pacheco don't really work. Sam Laporta is not going to leave us enough. But yeah, Hollywood Brown or Taekwon still lets us get to Isaac Tesla. Or Juju and Kareem Hunt is an idea too. Talked about this a lot on the stream. I think Brian talked about it on the Monday Showdown this past week, but Mahomes is projected for 45% MVP ownership on FanDuel. It's a lot, and last time he was projected for 50% ownership, he came in at 40, which is, still effectively half of the field. And so we're going to throw out the idea again today. You can consider playing 100% Mahomes at MVP, or consider playing 0% Mahomes at MVP and just get more of every other player at MVP, play Mahomes more in the flex. It's pretty good leverage, and at Occupy, we're almost always going to lean towards the 0% option, although I will say tonight is a little bit different just because of all those injuries on Detroit, particularly to Detroit's defense. The field is going to be kind of open for Patrick Mahomes to do his thing tonight, and so with a Patrick Mahomes MVP, I think the most likely way that gets there is multiple of his pass catchers catch a touchdown, right? So let's say it's Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, our top two underperforming wide receivers. That leaves us 9K. We're going to have to fade two of these guys probably, but let's go with Goff since he's the quarterback. We'll slide in David Montgomery. It leaves us 4,800 to get to a third Patrick Mahomes wide receiver, which is fine. Maybe we can go down from David Montgomery a little bit. Let's get a pass catcher for Jared Goff. Yeah, we could try Jamison Williams, 6,000. Kansas City defense, Kareem Hunt, Taekwon Thornton, Juju. So that gives us, there's still things we can do with Patrick Mahomes MVP. It just, if he's not the optimal MVP tonight, you're eliminating almost half the field by playing anyone else. And we saw this too. The last couple times I've recommended this, Patrick Mahomes was not the optimal MVP. He was still a great MVP choice. If you're playing smaller fields, you are not upset, but you could not win first place in the large field tournaments. And so that's the point. He could still put up a great game and just be needed in the flex, but someone else is needed at MVP just due to the way salary and lineup construction work. I also want to throw out building more Detroit heavy because the field is so heavy on Kansas City tonight. They're going to lean into Kansas City 4-2s with a Kansas City captain, and then a lot of the 3-3 builds are also going to have a Kansas City captain, and like it's not hard to see why. There's not really any value options on Detroit that we're interested in captain, maybe Jamison Williams. Whereas on Kansas City, any of these guys are viable captains. And so playing more Detroit players is pretty good leverage. And over on DraftKings, 5 of the top 7 plays are Detroit players: Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff, Sam Laporta, and David Montgomery. And then the 2 Kansas City players in there are Xavier Worthy and Kareem Hunt. The field's going to be heavy on Kansas City. Like I said earlier, it's definitely still okay to go heavy on Kansas City, but there is some leverage to be had playing Detroit, and just hope that they can overcome who they're missing on offense and defense. So I think went over most of what I wanted to talk about. I just want to throw out a couple more lineup ideas since I mentioned I like Amon-Ra at captain a lot and Xavier Worthy at captain. So let's just take a look at some more lineup builds. Like if we start with this 3, Amon-Ra, Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes, like it's pretty easy to slide in maybe Kareem Hunt. And I'm thinking about this lineup for maybe smaller fields, not like the largest contests. Maybe like even the 100 mans, yeah, but up to 500 people. Kareem Hunt leaves us 4,800 per player. The easy one would be Hollywood Brown, and we can play one of the defenses or Pacheco. Maybe we move Hunt down to Pacheco. Yeah, it doesn't let us do anything else there. Not sure I love the idea of playing both Kansas City running backs in the same lineup, but it is an option for leverage as well. Let's try it with maybe Jake Bates. Can get to Juju. It's not a bad one. I mean, Juju, I understand why builders and optimizers are putting Juju in because he's a super easy click, especially as the last man in. I mean, this leaves 800 on the table, so we have a few options of guys we can swap around in here. Let's just look if we want to try and fit Worthy in there as well. It only leaves us 2,600. We'd really have to punt off on someone. And so, let's look at Brock Wright since people have been mentioning that. I mean, yeah, you can still fit in Juju or Rashard Smith, the Chiefs defense. Just it's a little bit tough having to punt off on 2 of these spots. Let's say we fade Worthy here and we just go with Hollywood Brown instead. Take Brock Wright out. We'll play Kareem Hunt at 4,600. Leaves us 4,200 again. Yeah, leaves us in this weird salary zone. So just keep that in mind. If you're playing these expensive captains and MVPs, you are probably going to have to fade one of the other good studs in the flex. And it's not great if a lot of the field is going to try to do that and punt off on 1 or 2 guys and try to pick the guy that catches the touchdown. But I will say Juju probably stands out as the easiest click from this group down here. We just didn't talk about mixing in the defenses too much, but there are options. Like let's look at one. Let's look at a weird one. Xavier Worthy at captain. We'll play David Montgomery. We're going to throw Lions defense in there. Isaiah Pacheco over Hunt because we need. Oh no, we actually will have the salary, but we'll play Gibbs and Mahomes here. So this is fading Goff and St. Brown, pretty much fading the Detroit passing game. This actually kind of lines up a little bit with the injuries that we have, missing some players on their offensive line. Maybe Goff just can't. What's the word I'm looking for? Maybe Goff won't have the time that he usually has to pass the football. And it's kind of weird because Montgomery and Gibbs are in here too, but this lineup has worked before. Just some ideas. That's a large field lineup that I just threw up there. Thoughts on Tesla? Yeah, he will be the wide receiver 3 if Raymond is a no-go. I'll mention that right now with Raymond, we have Raymond projected in still, and Tesla's projected for 15% on DraftKings. I don't know that that's like too high or too low. It's probably about, well, if Raymond's in, I actually think it's a little bit too high. If Raymond's out, then it should go up a little bit. The thing is, even when Khalif Raymond left the game last week, let me just get this right, and then I'll get out of here. Tesla played 34% of snaps. It's not bad. Raymond got hurt pretty early into the game. And so he would be the wide receiver 3 here. I'll mention, like, we've been trying to make the wide receiver 3 on the Lions a thing for a while, and I don't know that we've actually ever gotten that. They've scored a touchdown here and there, and Tesla is a player capable of scoring, big touchdowns. And I think we remember that more just because of how difficult the touchdown that he caught looked earlier this season, or one of them anyway. But I just worry that he's going to come in a little bit too owned if we get that news that Khalif Raymond is out. He's still going to be a great play. I'd like to see what the model updates his ranking to if we do have that, because as of now, he's the lowest ranked player on the model. That's not just the minimum. So I hope that helps. Well, anyways, hope we got some good stuff. Basically, just play. I was going to say play more Chiefs, but like the field is leaning towards Chiefs. I want to lean towards Detroit. You could go either way tonight. I don't think that any direction you want to play is wrong. There's a lot of players to mix in, so let's just have some fun. Hope it's a good one. I'm taking a little bit more risk tonight, so I hope it works out. Appreciate you guys tuning in.